We're going to put the wool to rights, I think. Ross, to start with, I just wanted to ask you if you would ring my husband and tell him I'm normal, because for 18 years now, he thinks I'm the most bizarre woman because I take pictures of department store carpets and toilets. And I believe this is a shared hobby we have.
Yeah, that makes me sound really weird. But,
it makes me sound really weird.
I have walked around department stores taking pictures, trying to show that, in my view, the department store isn't dead. Just most of them in the UK, not including Selfridges, are pretty crap. So that was why I was taking pictures of the hideous carpets and the things falling around.
I did some well-known department stores toilets on the weekend. I know, you're looking at me thinking, she works internationally, she's a glamorous lifestyle, I can tell. Paul,
Yes.
Samsung.
Yes.
You don't take pictures of department stores?
Not often, no.
What are your hobbies? Tell us what you do for Samsung.
So, yeah, I head up our strategic client partnerships, and kind of what that means, it's our deepest end-user engagements in terms of people that use our technology. And I'm really fortunate that quite a lot of those are retailers, because actually they're some of the most interesting stories that we hear, and some of the most interesting challenges and things I've heard today that are kind of everyone's got some shared things, some are a bit individual, but yeah, they're really exciting journeys to go on with those guys.
Absolutely. And James, you've not only created a business, you've created a book.
Indeed.
Tell us.
Good Growth works mostly with FTSE 250 retailers, but we published one of the best-selling books on e-commerce in the UK 3 or 4 years ago, which grapples with the organisation challenge of responding to the macro factors that you've heard Sainsbury's talk about and Kingfisher today.
And Ross, you have already had a name drop today. I don't know if you were here earlier on, but it happened. It was positive. Just please, for those who might not know, tell us what Appear Here does.
So Appear Here, the way to think of it is a bit like Airbnb, but for retail space. So we've got about 180,000 brands and retailers, from Louis Vuitton and big luxury brands to technology companies like Google and Apple, down to tiny little guys just getting started, launching a florist. Literally any idea, we help them find space to bring their ideas to life. And
you started out at a pretty ripe old age of 16, is that right?
I left school at 16.
But yeah, that was your first pop-up experience, wasn't it?
I know, I launched a pop-up when it wasn't that young, but I was younger. But for the long story, it was for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, and it got banned by Buckingham Palace. And with the risk of sort of being sent to the Tower, we continued to sell these T-shirts in the basement, Prohibition style. And it became quite popular, and then people started to ask me to help them with their stores. And that led to the idea of Appear Here that we started a couple of years later. So we're now 4 years in, and we've got offices in London, Paris, and New York. And I think last year, in the UK, 3,800 shops closed, and Appear Here launched about 5,000.
Brilliant. What a fantastic panel. You've all in some way been involved with transforming retail. I'd like to start with you, James, to start with, because we've had a little bit of a chat. Don't look so surprised. There's only 3 of you. It's going to be one of you to start, you know.
Go for it.
Statistics, this is your work. We've had a bit of a chat before about the concern I have. I'll voice my opinion, but, you know, I go and meet CEOs in rooms. They tell me all about the digital wonder kid, and then they come out of a room and go, I don't know what they're saying. Talk to me about it. What's happening? What's happening with our data? Why have we got so much of it and we're not using it? What is going on?
Okay. So where do we start? I think the observation is that digital is relatively young as a channel. So if you think about any other route to market, if you're a retailer running a 100-store network, if Liverpool's performing well and Manchester isn't, you take the manager from Liverpool, put them into Manchester, and they can kick it because they know what good looks like. Digital is still relatively young, and particularly in large, complex businesses, to your point, where huge amounts of data, the culture that has evolved in many examples is the culture of the expert. And so you often find and you can spot them usually, they have very thick beards and drink flat whites. And you just need to be a bit careful, because the fundamental issue is organisations need to make money. They need to make money, and they keep being asked for more investments in digital, into people, technology and marketing. And actually what they need to work out is why customers are not buying. So your point about the department stores is, if you look at the UK department store as a sector, they're getting tens of millions of people coming to their websites every month. Tens of millions still. So they're still relevant. They can't sell to anybody. And that's the fundamental issue. They don't need a new website. They need to work out why customers don't buy. And their experts don't quite want them to do that just yet, because it's more fun by building a new website, in our experience.
You have clients that are huge household names.
Yep.
I know you probably can't tell us some of the insight, but tell us some of the consistent themes then on how you're helping to do something with that data to make that difference.
Okay. Without, so what the interesting data that everybody should demand, whether you're, so we do work with large complex businesses and the PLCs, but we also work with pure plays. Some of the fastest growing retailers in the UK, you can probably work out who it is. And they ask the same question. So many people come to our website. How many people came with the intention to buy? It's an extraordinary statistic, and nobody has it. Because if you can work that out, if you're converting, I don't know, 5%, and then usually it's about 3 times as many come with the intention to buy. You can put a dollar number on it very, very quickly, average order value, lifetime customer value, et cetera, et cetera. It's worth tens of millions, and you just need to close the gap. And we find that in these large organisations, they haven't, for lots of good reasons, that isn't where they start.
Ross, you are disrupting with the pop-up space. I've probably talked on several thousands of interviews with retailers saying, it's not fair, it's not a level playing field, rent rates. Talk to me about your concept and talk to me about what the future of the traditional form is.
The traditional
As in retail boxes, yeah.
So I think that I think the level playing field thing is interesting, because I think that actually when you're looking at let's look at direct-to-consumer brands at the moment in most spaces. A few years ago, you'd be at any sort of event like this, and you'd sit through all these conversations, and everyone would be going, is it online versus offline, and omni-channel, and da-da-da-da-da. And in the end, I think it's hopefully got to a point now where people are like, actually, it's just retail. And what we found with direct-to-consumer brands is that they're using Google acquisition, they're using different paid channels, and actually it's a huge percentage on a unit economics basis when they sell an item. So suddenly, when you think about all the mattress guys at the moment, some of these guys, they're paying 50% on digital acquisition of their unit economics to a Google or a Facebook. So actually, when you look at that as a percentage, it's more than traditional retail. So we've now got thousands of technology companies launching stores that are finding that a physical shop, when you make it no longer a fixed cost, but a variable cost, is suddenly actually better performing than not traditional, I mean, this is how I'm sort of thinking, but it's better performing than digital channels.
Yes.
And the reason I use traditional for them is that the way that they've been formed is on the basis that they won't have stores and that their channel to market will be Google, Facebook, etc. And now it's going full circle. And then in terms of my opinion on sort of retail in general, I think that physical retail will remain relevant. I think it will be more relevant than ever before. I think that the truth is that somewhere along the line, we started to see retail purely as convenience, and we're all sort of talking about it being disrupted. But at the weekend, everyone in this room still wants to go to a beautiful little street, have coffee, look at beautiful people, have a great day out, right? That's what we want to do. We don't want to sit at home on a
Beautiful
screen.
People.
Well, no.
I think
whatever your idea of beautiful is, we want to go into a lovely place and to experience stuff, to have human interaction. And you can't just do that online. And if you actually think about Amazon, who are an amazing business, but they're no different to a big store that filled as much product as possible and got people to go in and buy as quickly as possible. And I think that form of retail in the real world will die because Amazon's more convenient. But the idea that you want to go out, discover, meet people, have amazing interactions, have stories is, I don't think most people just want to buy for buying's sake. They're buying because they want it as a souvenir of that experience. They want it to mean something. And I think you still need the real world to make that happen.
Paul, you're working with tech and display, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this resonates, but I remember the days where you'd go into a store that had a new shiny screen fitted. 3 weeks in, it turned off because somebody didn't know how to work it, so then it was just a black shiny screen. Things have improved since then. What are you doing to change tech and retail and working together?
I think one of the main things we're trying to do is understand what the purpose of that tech is in store. So I think that previous incarnation of what had happened was people thought the store should be interesting and there should be moving imagery and it should be promoting something, but actually, is it really touching the customer journey in any significant way? And then if it wasn't, what would happen, as you said, is either it would be turned off because someone didn't know how to use it, or even more of a crime may be that the content wasn't actually in a position where it was relevant 2 or 3 weeks in. And that's the one thing I think digital in store gives you, is the ability to pivot and change direction and understand what's going to be most relevant. You can fail fast, which is incredibly important in retail, I think, in terms of being able to show, did this work? No, move on, change to the next thing. Something that print media can't really do in that environment. So I guess really what we're doing with our customers is saying, let us understand, you've got normally a great bricks and mortar estate. It's a wonderful way to interact with customers, as has just been mentioned. How do we really leverage that in the best way possible? And there's loads of different examples in terms of, is it something that needs to do, is something that sits around the power of the brand and enforcing that? Is it something that genuinely needs to aid a transaction? Or is there probably a mix between the two of promotion and transaction and reinforcing some brand value? So getting under the skin of that and then starting to deliver some technology that's not only looks really good, but has a software platform that sits behind it that allows customers to really change content and their message as and when they need to, depending on a number of different variables.